Yes, welcome into the camp. Badgers back in Madison for the first time this morning, Monday morning, after a extended trip down to Platteville for the first 2 weeks of fall camp. We've got a few more practices to see here this week as they lead up to Saturday's scrimmage, and then it's getting ready for that opener against Miami, Ohio, which is how many days away?
17 days.
17 days. Are you ready for football, or are you still looking to learn some things about this team?
Well, I'm ready to see what this version of Wisconsin football looks like, but we do continue to learn a whole heck of a lot about this team, including what we saw this morning.
Yes, and while we learned a lot about, there were some big-time plays and there were some impressive performances from guys, but we have to start with what initially looked like some pretty unfortunate news for Wisconsin. Billy Edwards Jr. Left practice midway through the practice after what appeared to be a knee injury, and he went inside, came back out. We learned afterwards from him that he knocked knees with somebody, and that had it been a game, he probably would have been able to play through it. But he was limping pretty good there and gave people a little bit of a scare.
Yeah, especially given what we've seen the last several years at Wisconsin. And I think back to when Luke Fickell spoke with us after the first practice down in Platteville. I'd asked him a question about Hunter Simmons because Hunter obviously was brought in that spring transfer portal window. And Luke was just saying, not that you hope that anybody gets hurt, but given where we've been the last couple of years, we need to create some competition. And this is exactly why. So Billy had a knee-to-knee situation in some 11-on-11 work, and he stayed in for one more snap and just didn't look right, threw a ball behind the wide receiver and immediately limped off. But all things considered, this is probably best case scenario. And yes, if this were a game, maybe you hold him out a drive or a few plays, he would have gone back in there. But you want to be safe and not sorry, given how valuable he is to this program as QB1. But what it did moving forward in practice, and we'll see how long he is out or just they take it easy on him, is it gave opportunities for guys like Danny O'Neal and Hunter Simmons to get reps with the first team offense, which we have not seen because it's just been Billy Edwards Jr., understandably so, where Danny and Hunter have been splitting some reps with the twos. And it just, that moment to me, further solidified the importance of establishing a backup quarterback that can help you, because you never know. But at Wisconsin, it feels like more often than not, you end up having to see them for some unfortunate news. But all things considered, best case scenario given what we saw.
I was going to say, I feel like the last 2 years kind of have solidified the need for a backup quarterback for me. That said, while I'm sure Danny O'Neal is a great guy and Hunter Simmons is a great guy, I don't want to see him this year. I've seen enough backup quarterback play, and that's no shot at them. It's more of a shot at Braden Locke. So there's that. But I just don't want to see it again. So when that happened, it made me think, like, is this going to be another one of those years? Because they've been snake bitten. I mean, we can talk all we want about the things that have not gone right the last 2 years, and a lot of it is not just related to the quarterback, but not having your starting quarterback for extended stretches the last 2 seasons has been a rather big part of why they have not been as successful maybe as we thought they would be under Luke Fickell. I'm not saying they would have been a college football playoff contender if Tanner Mordecai had played the entirety of 2023 or Tyler Van Dyke had played all of last year, but it certainly played a role in their struggles. Neither one of those guys was going to go and stop the run, so it probably wouldn't matter. But I would like to see Luke Fickell and his staff be able to have their quarterback for an entire year, or at least an extended part of a year, to play healthy. And today gave him a little bit of a scare, I think, initially. And we don't know exactly who hit, right? We don't know exactly who hit knees with him, but it appeared it might have been Sebastian Cheeks, because Sebastian Cheeks looked very, very worried about it, like was going and checking with the trainers, trying to figure out, I think, what exactly the prognosis was on it. But thankfully for Wisconsin, not apparently serious. And Billy Edwards should be back and obviously ready to go, you would assume, by the time, at worst case, by the time the season were to go, or I should say the season gets going. So that was part of it. But as you mentioned, it did allow Danny O'Neal to come in and get a ton of reps with the first team, and he showed out, didn't he?
That was the best Danny O'Neil I've seen all fall camp. Maybe he's just a primetime player and you need to get him with the ones. Look, there's something to be said for who are you handing the ball off to? What offensive linemen are blocking for you? What kind of playmakers do you have out there? We've heard Luke over the last couple of years talk about when you're trying to develop guys with the twos or even with the threes, if it's some freshmen, it's a challenge because how much of it is on that individual player at quarterback and how much is it on everyone else? But absolutely, I thought Danny showed his versatility. And I did wonder, so this was always going to be quarterback day where we talked to Kenny Guyton, the quarterbacks coach, as well as the top three quarterbacks. I wondered, well, what does this backup competition look like? Because Hunter and Danny have split reps pretty consistently throughout fall camp. And the first guy in through the entirety of practice today was Danny O'Neil. And you could see why. That's not to say that Hunter Simmons isn't continuing to get a look, but his escapability in the pocket is the thing that stands out most, obviously. But he's got a nice arm. He had several good completions. And again, this was not a true move the ball situation. It was like they spot the ball 5 yards up, 5 yards back, whatever it may be. But handful of first down throws. The play to me that stood out most, though, was he had an option read and he ended up keeping it. And he faked the pitch and he juked the safety like out of his shoes and took off up the field and turned what could have been a loss if he had pitched the ball into a first down. And that is part of what makes O'Neill's game special. Now, what will that look like if he has to play this season? Who knows? But I like what I saw from him today, and it was more than I think I've seen of him throughout this fall camp in terms of consistency in playmaking ability. But I think we should also say Hunter Simmons, I mean, he threw a 74-yard touchdown pass. There are still some situations, though, where it looks like he's continuing to learn because there's several balls that look to me like they're thrown behind a receiver, one that was picked off, and it kind of, to me, clarified a little bit that why Danny is perhaps a little out in front.
I think I turned to you after that run, the fake, and I said, I think 18 looks a little bit different this year. Because obviously 18 last year wasn't going to be doing anything like that. This 18, it has that ability. It wasn't obviously just that, though. Some of the throws that he made, he had a couple of dimes, one to Tresh Kahuna on the sideline, another one to Tyrell Henry. Then he hit Jaden Ballard down the field in a little bit of a soft spot in the zone right by the sideline. Those were impressive throws, and you could hear the guys yelling about it. Like the offense was loving it. He had I think that was easily the best I've seen him, not just fall camp, spring ball too. Like this is, and again, you're right. Doesn't matter who's blocking for him. Doesn't matter who's going out there and catching balls, but he put balls where they needed to be and guys made plays for him. And so I thought that certainly stood out. You mentioned the long touchdown. It came for Hunter Simmons. It came on a free play. They got the defense to jump off sides and he hit Joe Griffin. Joe Griffin just, what's that segment they do on like the Monday Night Countdown thing? It's You Got Mossed, or maybe that's a Sunday show. Either way, and that's essentially what he did to Kairos Gaines. Went up and just grabbed it, pushed him off, and ran off for a touchdown. And then the next play is when the interception happened, where it looked like he was intending that one for Eugene Hilton Jr., and it wasn't really close to him. It was a bullet, and Emilio Agard showed some hands there because I think he showed some wide receiver hands on that play, just snatching it. And that might have not been his only interception. I thought he had a couple interceptions.
He had another one.
Yeah. So he had a really good day. But that is, I think you're talking about it, the ups and downs maybe there for Hunter Simmons.
Yeah. Again, I did not think he would be this much in the mix for the backup quarterback job when he got here, mostly because I didn't know that much about him. I don't know how anyone can sit here and say they did, other than, he started 3 games at Southern Illinois a year ago, had a couple 300-yard games, then he got hurt. He came here because of the connection that he had with his former OC wide receiver coach, who is now an assistant receivers coach here. But they obviously saw enough in him to give him an opportunity at earning that backup job. And if anything, I think it's even more important this week to see what both those guys have, just because I don't know why you'd want to risk having Billy Edwards Jr. out there. If he said it felt like immediately you could tell it was a bruise, is how Billy put it. And so those other 2 guys are going to get a bunch of opportunities. But yeah, I mean, Danny did start for a full year at the FBS level and had the head start by coming in here in the winter, getting those 15 practices. And he was even talking about how there are some times where Hunter, because of when he got here, is asking him questions to try to learn everything. And that's not an easy job for anybody, though he does have that experience as an older guy. So I think we're going to see more of those two guys, but absolutely, I was impressed with Danny O'Neil and what he was able to do consistently today.
You got to talk to him after practice today too, right? Was there anything that stood out to you in what he had to say about whether it was today or just in general?
Which one, Danny?
Yeah.
No, I mean, he's not. I don't think so. I think it's mostly just
okay.
He wanted to make it clear that the first thing he's thinking is, God, I hope Billy's okay. But I think he's just kind of a laid back, cool customer. It's kind of what I gather from talking to him, which is what you like out of a quarterback. And obviously, when he stepped into the one role, you could see that talent emerge.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. He does have that experience, certainly more than what Hunter Simmons has, and definitely at this FBS level. Hunter Simmons, though, as you said, no one expected him to be a part of this competition until Luke Fickell said it out in Vegas, right? Like there was no anticipation of him being a part of this. It was thought that maybe it was going to be Carter Smith, and Hunter Simmons has taken just as many reps with that second group as Danny O'Neil has. I look at Hunter Simmons. He's got a big arm. He's got a huge arm, and it's definitely can make the throws that are needed to make. But the accuracy, maybe I think is that something that he's still working on. When you spoke to him today too, correct?
I did.
Yeah. What made him choose Wisconsin?
It's the connection that he had, which opened the door. Because I said, well, what other schools were you considering? And he was saying there were some, mid-major type schools, FCS type schools. But this opportunity, the door opens, and you got to take advantage of it because you've got someone who's familiar with him as his offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. And so what is interesting is what does happen with the guy who doesn't win the job, assuming Billy Edwards Jr. is healthy. Do they end up redshirting? And, Hunter acknowledged when he was asked about it, like that, yes, that has been a conversation. We'll have to see how it all plays out, but wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for the program to have somebody of that caliber and with that much experience, be willing to stick around. But again, that's for the future. But I do think the experience helps. It is a challenge to come at the time that he did and try to establish yourself. And I do think, he's got a big arm. He has some pretty good mobility too. I mean, they can get him out on some of those situations outside the pocket. And I'm thinking of one play today in particular where he just kind of cut it upfield and you're not necessarily expecting it. So I think he can do everything, but it is the matter of the consistency. Even a pass into the flat to a tight end that he threw behind the tight end didn't even give him the chance to pick up a few yards. Those are the kinds of things you just can't have if you want to be in the game.
Yeah. The other scholarship quarterback is Carter Smith. And I thought it was interesting listening to Kenny Guyton talk about a conversation that they had in camp earlier, because you bring in Billy Edwards Jr., you bring in Hunter Simmons, you bring in Danny O'Neil, and all of a sudden it's like, well, I'm not going to play this year. Why, what does it matter? Well, I'm just not go through the motions, but there's not a whole lot of urgency. And apparently they sat down, him and Kenny Guyton, and Kenny Guyton's like, you need to have some urgency here. You need to prove, because Wisconsin doesn't want a one and done quarterback every single year. They don't want to have to bring in a transfer every single year. They want to be able to see somebody like a Carter Smith show the ability, show the potential of being the future of the program. And they weren't getting that from him earlier on.
So Kenny talked about this in the spring. So I believe this was a conversation they had pretty early on when things started, because he referenced this when we talked to him in the spring about when you come in and you're the freshman and you were just in high school. Hey, there's a fifth-year guy, Billy Edwards Jr. is here. You brought in another quarterback who started for a year, and there's just no time to take it easy. And that is something that Kenny felt it was really important to have that conversation with Carter about. You need to have some urgency immediately, because every day is an opportunity to learn. And again, they didn't bring him here for no reason. We know about the accolades. The top 15 quarterback in the country, was committed to Michigan for nearly a year. And so if you're going to get those reps, you got to show why you're here and why you can potentially be the future. It's been, I think, slow going for Carter. But again, when you're getting the reps with the threes, look who your O-line is, look who you're going up against. And also just the speed of the game, even at that level, you're not even talking about going against the ones. It's different from high school. So I think there's a lot of situations where the pocket's collapsing. Maybe he's holding on to it too long. Probably would have gotten sacked. And maybe there's the first instinct is to get out of the pocket because he's an athlete, and that's what he did so well at the high school level. So it's certainly a learning curve, but he's only been here for 6 months. Like, that's the thing that 7 months you have to keep in mind, and we'll see what kind of opportunities he gets in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I got a couple of questions about some of the standouts after practice today. One of the questions was, is this the best wide receiver room that Wisconsin's had since we've covered the team? And I don't again, I would say it's not. I think the potential's there, but I think back to a room that had Quintez Cephas, Kendrick Pryor, AJ Taylor, and
Danny Davis.
One more, Danny Davis.
Yep.
Quintez got drafted. Kendrick Pryor's still in the league. Danny Davis got a little bit of a cup of coffee with the Packers. And AJ Taylor, with perhaps, if he hadn't gotten injured late in that season against Minnesota, maybe he also has a chance at the NFL. I think that was the best group overall that they've had here. I mean, who's the best receiver you covered since you've been here? You were here in 2011, so you got Nick Toon as well. I mean, Jared Abbrederis is way up on my list, and so is Alex Erickson, and Quintez Cephas obviously as well.
Yeah, so no, this is not the best wide receiver group. You're going to have to go and put some productivity on the field. Yeah, I know Vinny Anthony has done that. Tretch got some opportunities last year. Jaden Ballard barely played at Ohio State. Like, you're going to have to prove, and I also don't know how many guys are going to play. Though Eugene Hilton Jr., get him on the field somehow. Every time you throw him the ball, he's able to catch it. But I'm with you. That was the group that I would have said. Nick Toon and Jared Abbrederis were a pretty darn good tandem in 2011. Obviously, you had some good players around, and that helps. And Alex Erickson, the numbers that he put up, like twice as many catches as anybody else. So there's potential here. But no, it's not the best.
Yeah, I mean, that 11 group, throw Jeff Duckworth in there too, right?
Just based on one catch.
Just based on the one catch he had. I know he had more catches than that, but yeah, there's potential here, but that 2017 group and the 2019 group was really, really good. And in 2018
talent out of your number one wide receiver.
NFL talent, and then your other guys that were behind him are NFL ended up, at least, Kendrick's still in the NFL. So, I mean, he's still there, and Danny Davis got a shot. Quintez, obviously, with the gambling stuff, and he's kind of been in and out, but he's back, and he got re-signed as well. So he's still there. That to me is the best group. It's going to take, I think, a little bit to catch those guys. But potential's there for sure.
Great opportunity for a plug here before we move on, by the way, because Wednesday's our next Badger Bites video. I just saw it. It's another film breakdown. This one is Alex Erickson, who we were just talking about, and Vinny Anthony. It's about 20 minutes. It is freaking awesome, if I can say. The Joe Thomas Riley Mallman one 2 weeks ago was cool. This one might be even cooler just because of the way these guys talk about route running. And there's a special cameo from a certain starting quarterback in the room who just, it's funny. We were in the wide receiver room doing this video, and Billy popped in there thinking they were going to have some type of meeting. And all of a sudden these two guys are watching film. He's like, "Oh, you're watching film?" And he sits down. And so he ended up being a part of the video too. But that one is going to be a lot of fun that drops Wednesday morning at Badger Connect.
I could be wrong, but I think Alex got a future in the media business if he wants it.
Yeah. He put a lot of effort into this one. He studied all the tape before they sat down.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, he was always great when he had a chance to talk to him when he played here and had a great career. And I mean, dude went from a walk-on to like almost playing in the league for a decade, almost, right? So crazy. Other side of the ball, and there was a sighting of a guy playing first team defense the entire practice, which kind of caught me off guard. His name was Nyzier Fourqurean, who has spent a majority of his time this fall camp with the 2s and 3s and not really I shouldn't say not standing out. He's standing out because he's better than the 2s and 3s, and he's better than the receivers that are on the other side of the ball with the 2s and 3s. So he certainly has made his share of plays, but it felt like he was on a mission today, made a ton of plays and got every single rep with the first team defense. And I asked afterwards, one of the communications folks, like, is there something new here? Did we miss something? Is nothing new. So maybe this was just a time to get him out there, get him one day, and you're going to get all your work with the first team defense, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. We'll see what happens next practice, whether that is still the case. But that was interesting.
Yeah, for a second I was wondering, does Wisconsin know something that we don't know? I'm absolutely fantastic today, which is not a surprise because he's a starting Big Ten cornerback. He's a starting corner at Wisconsin who's just in a situation where he can't play right now. I don't know whether it was, and again, we didn't have a chance to talk to Luke Fickell or anybody on the defensive staff, so it was quarterback day. You're not necessarily going to get this answer. Do you just want to get him reps? Was it to send a message to some of these other guys? Because obviously they still have Deone Hill. Emilio Agard had a great day as well. Ricardo Hallman has been kind of banged up, though obviously Hallman and Fourqurean, when they're on the field, are on opposite sides. I was pulling up my notes because he had a great pass breakup on Tyrell Henry. This was in Skeleton. He intercepted a pass from Billy Edwards Jr. It felt like he was everywhere. If they were tossing it to the running backs, he was stopping guys. But I can't say I fully understand giving him all the 1 reps if he's not going to be available until at the earliest October, unless it's just an accumulation of keeping him fresh. And again, maybe they're still thinking of it as, well, he's still got a shot and we want to be in the best position possible, that if we do get to October or November, I don't even know the likelihood of that happening, he'll be there. But when you do that, it means those other guys are not going to get those 1 reps. So yeah, he's one of the best corners they have on the team. Was reestablished today, but I already knew that.
Yeah, he actually got some reps on both sides. Like he's usually the boundary corner, but he played a little field as well. So maybe it's just they gave the number 2 corners the number 1 reps today, right? Because Emilio Agard and Kairos Gaines did a lot of work with the 2s, and it was Deone Hill. And then obviously Ricardo Hallman actually returned to some team drills today as well. Maybe that's just what it was. Maybe they're just giving guys some different times, but we talked about it earlier where he got just 3 reps with the first team, like the first practice. And you're like, what, why are they doing that? Like, he's not going to, what's going on? And then obviously we know what they're doing, and the lawsuit that it won't be heard until July, what is it? September 28th, I think is the hearing date. It's right around
30th.
there.
Yeah. Is it September 30th? It's at the end of the month.
Yeah, it's at the end of the month. So the first game he would potentially be able to play in would be Michigan. They still have the appeal to the NCAA. I don't know that they've gotten an answer on that. I also would be shocked if the NCAA somehow changes their mind on that, but who knows? It just felt a little off, and I guess we'll have to see tomorrow, or I should say the next practice, whether he is still getting those reps or not. Because if he is, then it's like maybe they do something. Maybe they do know something we don't. There's plenty of stuff they know that we don't. But in terms of that,
it could be a one-off. And when you've got this many practices, I suppose that's okay. I mean, Jamari Washington is someone we have not talked about much at all. I had a couple picks on Saturday, had another interception at practice on Monday. And so developing those young guys is super important. I don't think it's a deep room. I'm not saying you're going to see Washington this season. I wouldn't expect to, because again, you've still got Hallman. You've got Agard, who it looks like is on his way to being that other guy opposite Hallman. But Deone Hill, I mean, my God, we didn't even talk about this one play. There was a what's it, a toss play or something like that? And he just destroyed a guy. You don't see much tackling in those kinds of situations. Was a reminder that, yeah, he's going to be a part of this as well.
Yeah, it wasn't a guy. It was 225 or 230 pound Gideon Atuka. He just came free and just absolutely drilled him. You could hear the pop up in the stands. Like, it was one of those hits, even with the music playing. It was one of those hits that, and then the entire defense goes crazy. And yeah, it was a hell of a hit. That was a hell of a hit. So Jamari Washington, I feel maybe down the line, he is so skinny, right? Like, I think there's still, that's where he might not be able to get on the field yet, is just, I don't know if he's physically ready to do it, but you're right. He had a couple picks on Saturday. The one today, it looked like he was the wide receiver more so than the wide receiver he was guarding.
Badly underthrown pass. Also,
He was
Jameer
also step for
Latimer,
step with the guy too.
yeah, I think Jameer Latimer has been outstanding this fall. Like he had a really, in my mind, had a really good day today. Again, he's your slot guy. That's basically where he's been. They're going to be in that situation a lot this season, as they have been for several years. So there is some good top end talent, but the Fourqurean situation just is weird. The whole thing all the way around.
It's very weird. Very weird. I thought another guy who had a good day, speaking of the defense, Charles Perkins. And maybe it's just because celebrates all of them, and that's why it just pops out and hits you in the face. But I love his energy, and he is a big body, and they have a lot of those now up front. We'll see if it matters, but he is a guy who's making a jump up in competition, and I don't know that it's been too big of a jump at this point for him. Again, I should also say that a lot of the times he is going against some younger offensive linemen, right? The entire second group for Wisconsin, maybe outside of JP Benchall, is pretty much just all young guys that haven't played a ton of football and are still growing. But he looks the part for sure.
Yeah, I would also say this has surprised me. Brandon Lane has gotten a ton of reps with the first group.
Big boy too.
Yes, gained weight as everyone did in the offseason. I didn't know what his role was going to be because he didn't play a ton last year. It was a transfer that you thought, okay, maybe this is the year where some of those D linemen make a huge impact that are transfers. And it ended up being Elijah Hills, not so much Lane. But he's gotten a ton of reps. Again, you've got 6, 7, 8 defensive linemen. I don't know what the numbers statistically are going to look like, but absolutely. We've said this from the spring that Perkins was a guy who plays with some of that feistiness, that nastiness, and can, if he's not making the play, can free it up for some of the edge guys. And I think the edge guys have continued to do a really good job of getting pressure on the quarterbacks. Sometimes it's tough to know if it was a sack or whatever happened, but defenses look solid this fall, which is a step in the right direction.
Yeah, Nick Clayton had a sack today, or would have had a sack today. I think it's also interesting because they haven't really been using Mason Reiger as they try and keep him healthy. Do you think that's what Matt Mitchell said? There was no concern there, just trying to keep him healthy. But I think that's 3 straight days where he is not, might be even more, where he has not taken part like any of the team drills.
Yeah.
So
I don't want to misspeak because I can't recall if Matt Mitchell said there was something minor with him and you just wanted to be safe. But
I asked him if it was serious.
How much he liked. Yeah.
Yeah. I asked him if it was serious. He said no. It was just his position coach holding him out. And obviously his position coach is Matt Mitchell. I think we kind of mentioned that the other day, but we'll see. Keeping him healthy is paramount because he's shown an ability to get after quarterback, and that is something that they did not do well at all last year. And he's a body type that, I know we've talked about body types consistently. Feel a little weird doing it, but that they have so many different guys, but he's a guy that I think can perhaps hold up against the run and also get after the passer, kind of like a Corey Walker, who I feel good about too.
Yeah,
so
I mean, Walker's ability to set the edge at 297 pounds is going to be huge, and you can see some of that difference when he comes in. And Matt Mitchell talked about Reiger's versatility, like has done as much as anybody, and you could tell when Mitchell was talking about Reiger how impressed he'd been with what he'd done there in that first week. It's just a matter of making sure he's healthy when you get to game one, because that has been an issue for him throughout his career. But if he is in, absolutely, he can be the kind of difference maker off the edge that Wisconsin hasn't had the last couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else stand out for you that you want to talk about? Did you want to plug anything else?
I probably should.
I was going to say, what other stories you got coming up on Badger Connect that you can find all of Jesse's work up on badgerconnect.com and sign up for a membership.
Yes, working on a story from our quarterback interviews on what we saw today. I mentioned the Badger Bites video. And I know this is a football podcast, but there will be a volleyball story coming on Friday about the importance of staff continuity because the volleyball team has its red and white scrimmage on Saturday. They have an exhibition against Notre Dame on Sunday, and then the season opener against Kansas is August 29th. So that's part of the coverage plans here as well. But you can check it all out at Badger Connect. And, of course, the vast majority of the coverage will be football, understandably so.
It's funny you mentioned volleyball because the third member of our show, Hank, had a run-in with Kelly Sheffield the other night here in Wanakee. We were walking down the sidewalk, and I think him and his daughter were going to get, ice cream, and Hank would not leave them alone. He was just jumping, and he's a little bit of a wild card when you get him outside. He's a little bit of a wild card inside as well, but he introduced himself to Kelly Sheffield. I had to apologize, and he's like, "No, it's fine. But I feel like all I'm doing when I go outside with Hank is apologizing to people." And
he's a big
apparently
volleyball fan. What can you say?
And he was like showing off his hops, showing off his leaps. So you maybe use him as a blocker coming up at some point. Do you ever watch Air Bud?
No.
You've never seen Air Bud back in the day?
I'm familiar with it, but no, I didn't waste my time on that one.
Golden Retriever, Hank, Golden Retriever. I'm not saying that they both have the same leap or the same hops, but possibly. Either way, he introduced himself to Kelly Sheffield, and Kelly Sheffield's the volleyball coach, so bringing those two together. All right. Practice tomorrow, correct?
That is right.
Yeah. Well, they don't practice 6 straight days. They have a day off here. I think it's Wednesday, right?
Yeah, they're off Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday will be the last 3 practices that we have an opportunity to see. And I think for them, Saturday is considered the close of fall camp. And as you mentioned at the outset, it's expected to be some type of scrimmage setting. So we'll be able to provide you with some more clarity on where things stand less than 2 weeks from the opener.
Yep. But we are going to try and do as many shows as we possibly can. So hopefully we'll see you tomorrow. Jesse, thank you very much.
Thanks, Zach.
All right. There he is. Jesse Temple from Badger Connect. You've been listening to The Camp.